Hi folks, Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, come back to this matter of alleged or supposed worker shortage in the West. This is being used by the globalist propagandists to promote mass migration and say that it should be ramped up and increased and so on. And illiterate brown and black peasants from the third world are actually all doctors and engineers, the normal lies and deceit that we're subject to day in, day out. But I did a video a couple of days ago now, or was it yesterday, about that this worker shortage doesn't exist, or it exists in very unique and micro pockets where, well, and I'm talking full-time jobs here, but where people are paid the minimum wage and where the workplace, could be a warehouse or something, a factory, whatever, is nowhere near major transport links. Now, people that are paid the minimum wage, they can't afford to run a car, and so they have to rely on public transport. And some of these places are 3, 4, 5 kilometres away from the nearest transport link. Therefore, people are looking at the cost of transport from their minimum wage job and thinking, hey, I'm going to have nothing left in my pocket after I've paid for transport. Now, I'm arguing that the way around this isn't to go boohooing to the government and say, you've got to bring out more illiterate black peasants. The solution to this is to be more imaginative and more creative in providing either more money or better facilities, such as, for example, a well stocked or organised food supply, canteen, effectively tea room facilities, lunchroom facilities for the amenities for the employees. Now, something that the company could put on, which is 100% tax deductible, that would cost them really not very much, but would be a big saving. For people on the minimum wage, if you can save them 10, 15, 20 bucks a day, then that means a lot to them. And these things would go a long way to solving these labour or alleged, I don't agree they're labour shortages. I just think there's an artificial suppression of wages at the bottom end, wages and conditions, and that's what the cause of the issue is. And as the price of, say, electricity goes up and companies find it harder to pay the electricity bill, they tend to take that out of the hides of their employees. They employ fewer employees, or again, artificially suppress the wages. So the cost of going green is being borne by the citizenry, not only the cost of electricity, but in reduction in their wages and amenities in the workplace. But I've had a few people sort of contact me and say, well, look, there's lots of positions vacant, job that are posted in down the main street and all over the place. I see them, by the way, in the local area. There's quite a few signs in the windows of say the takeout food shops, the pizza shops, and that sort of thing, saying help wanted, workers needed, apply within, and those sorts of things. And they tend to be smaller businesses or small shops as part of a wider chain, pizzas as an example, chicken shops and so on. So when you actually have a look at this, and I've done some investigation of this, so I just want to put it, there is no worker shortage. Let me start with that. But let me just sort of look at how in the real world it plays out on the street, this sort of thing. Now, so here's the chicken shop. Now, what they've got is they need help, but they can't guarantee even the minimum amount of hours. So sure, they want you to register as someone they can call on, but they're going to have a number of people that they register there. But they want to be able to contact people. Sure, they want local people. They want the shop's busy. You've got a lot of customers buying chicken and so on, but they want to be able to call someone up and they come down straight away. So they want to have to plan ahead. They don't want to say, here's your guaranteed hours or something like that. They want to just say, as soon as they're busy, they want to be able to pick up the phone and someone comes down to help within 15 or 20 minutes. And they may never make the call, they may never need the call. Maybe they've got 3 or 4 people on the list, and the first one's reliable and comes in, or if the first one's not on, it's the second one, and so on. So they want this ability to have maximum flexibility, that they can call someone at any time and get them to come down to work in the chicken shop. Similarly, if they've been there for a couple of hours and things calm down, they want to be able to send them, it's okay, don't need you now, off you go. And so nobody can actually get an agreed or minimum amount of hours. They can't say, we'll give you 4 hours a week, or we'll give you 20 hours a week, or 30 hours a week of work. So it's very rando, totally rando. And somebody could get 20 hours a week 1 week, but then 3 weeks where they get no hours. If someone's receiving a government benefit, which if they're looking for that sort of work, they probably are, but if they receive a government benefit of some sort, or they're a student that say they're a student from, I don't know, some China or India or something like that, they're restricted. I think it's off the top of my head, I think it's 20 hours a week they're restricted to these sorts of things. But so if they want to get, if these people are on a government benefit of some sort, or a student restriction, or some sort of government allowance, the minute they receive even 4 hours of employment, then bureaucratically they're deemed as that person is employable. And even though they only got 4 hours, their government payment will be cut off. Now, once you're deemed as employable, as a bureaucratic deeming thing, once you're deemed as employable, you kind of have to prove you can't get a job after that. And that proof, bureaucratically, procedurally, is that you go for 6 weeks without employment. So just for a 4-hour gig of getting paid, $60 or something like that, you've lost now 6 weeks of government payment. So why would you take something as uncertain and unpredictable and rando as 1 4-hour gig when you're going to lose 6 weeks of government payment that you've got anyway? So you wouldn't do it. Nobody, unless they're sort of intellectually challenged, would run that sort of high risk. But that's the sort of employment that's out there. The same could be for delivering pizzas. There's always complaints in the local newspapers and signs in shops saying, well, we can't get people to deliver pizza, and they provide like the vehicles for delivering the pizza, and they put the fuel in them and so on. So all the person has to do is drive to the location. They've got these location finds, so people don't need to know the area or the geography. They've got something that tells them, well, that they just put in the name of the street, and it tells them turn right here, turn left there, that sort of thing. And then a lot of them also are adding interpreter devices on there, so it gives instructions verbally, gives instructions in Chinese or some Indian fucking language. So they can even get illiterate people coming, illiterate English, people coming in and doing the work. But again, the same sort of thing exists. They won't guarantee a minimum amount of hours, and they can, and even if they do guarantee it, the employment contract says they can change that at any time. At any time. So we'll give you, for example, we'll give you 20 or 30 hours a week of pizza delivery, but then they can say, okay, as of tomorrow, as of 2 days hence, we're not giving you any hours, or we're not agreeing to any hours. So really, it's still, you're still in that cycle where you've got 6 weeks before you can reclaim your government benefit, and in that time, you wouldn't want to get any work unless it was full-time and reliable and dependable, because then the government would use that as yet another excuse to say, well, you're employable because you got 4 hours of work so many weeks ago, so it's going to take another 6 weeks before you get it. So most of these people are unwilling to take the risk of doing uncertain employment because of the risks associated with it. Now, if you're let's say you're not getting a government benefit, and let's say, I don't know, you're a student, you're living living at home with your folks, like you're going to university or something. You're living at home with your folks, and you want to make a bit of money. And like any student who's sort of 19 years old, you've probably got a bit of a social life. Now, remember, these people will call you up at any time, 20 minutes before they need you. Can you come down now? And and typically the busier times are going to be night times, Friday nights, weekends, that sort of thing. So if you've organised any social events and you're about to go out and do something, then 20 minutes before they need you, they're on the phone calling you saying you have to come down. That's pretty disruptive, and you may get there and 2 hours later they tell you to go home, and these sorts of things. We don't need you now. So you've ruined your entire night out for $30 or something in pay. So why would you do that? So even as a student, so really the issue here isn't the worker shortage, and it's worker conditions and unreliability. Now, years ago, it used to be that that employers were obligated to give you 7 days notice of your roster. The amount if they wanted to have you as a casual worker, they had to give you 7 days notice, and they had to give you a certain amount of hours. So, well, next week you've got 20 hours, or however many hours, they can 40 or whatever it was. They give you the roster, and also over what time frame. Like, would you be starting early in the morning, or would you be working sort of later into the afternoon? You see this especially, say, with 24-hour supermarkets and grocery stores, that sort of thing. You see this rostering is quite an issue. And it used to be they had to give you they had to give you a minimum amount of hours, and they had to give you 7 days notice of a change in your roster, and various other things, that protection for the worker. Now, the business sector screamed and cried and hollered that was no good, and that they needed, and they used to say, we need flexibility, whatever the fuck that meant. This is why CEO wages were increasing from 5-6 times the average wage up to 150 times the average wage. So there was flexibility there, but not flexibility over here, and so the whole thing comes down to that there was a big change in the process, that unions, globalist controlled and infiltrated unions, signed on to here, where workers' rights, the gig economy, workers' rights were effectively taken away, but also workers' sort of surety and certainty. Now, this is blown back on many employers now, particularly the smaller employers, but not just them. Again, the pizza chains and so on are affected, where they still want to hold on to that flexibility, but they don't want to they're not prepared to improve conditions, wages, to give surety and certainty to people. For example, you should be able to employ somebody for a certain amount of time at a minimum amount of hours, so it gives them surety. Otherwise, it's simply not worth people taking the risk. They'll lose their government benefit, or it's so disruptive to their personal and social lives that it's hardly worth it either. Now, if a worker gets enough reliable, regular hours, then they will do this sort of thing. But at a minimum wage, they need, assuming they live close by, and they don't have to pay, they live with their folks or something like that. They still need something like 28 hours a week minimum of work at this minimum wage rate. They still need 28 hours a week before it's really viable, because the wages are so low. But this is something that employers and the government should get together and address. For example, should the government say, well, just because you get 4 hours of work doesn't mean you're going to lose your benefits for 6 weeks. Maybe you get a reduced benefit for 1 week. And so there needs to be flexibility. If the employers want maximum flexibility, and they do, and they got it, then there has to be also compensating flexibilities in other areas, such as offering some sort of certainty to the worker, the government being more responsive to somebody's needs in terms of re-establishing their government benefit if they only had a short-term sort of few hours of work, these sorts of things. So there needs to be flexibility all around. Now, something that's come up recently, and the propagandists, the globalist propagandists are pushing, is that students that come from overseas, who are studying in Australia, the Indian student, they're only allowed to work a certain amount of hours a week. I think it's 20 off the top of my head, but now, I don't think they should be permitted to work any hours, is my view. But there's a big push with the globalist propaganda machine to say, well, these students should be able to work as many hours as they want to. Now, how someone can be studying full time and work sort of a full-time job as well is quite beyond me. But nonetheless, the globalist propagandists are pushing this idea that this shortage of this alleged shortage of workers, which is piss poor conditions and the uncertainty and so on, that should be filled by overseas students who will accept under the table corrupt payments and these sorts of things. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that will simply extend even further the underground economy, which is already massive in Australia and elsewhere in the West, that's completely filled with illegal aliens and visa overstays and the mass migration hordes that have come in that are, the illiterate peasants that are doing the cleaning jobs, working in the takeout food shops and so on. Now, where all these, now you'll notice that near a major transport hubs and links, there's very few of these so-called unfillable job vacancies. Whereas as soon as you move away from those major transport links, then the amount of these so-called unfillable job vacancies increases. This is the transport issue. If you want to be able to transport, illiterate third world peasants to fill all these jobs, then you need transport links to do it. So there are a whole lot of things that go into this, but is there a worker shortage? Again, there's no worker shortage, nothing even close. You've been attached to us today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.